No, Sharif, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing very well, thank you very much. How are
That's
you?
good. I'm good, mate. I see. I've literally just been talking about Star Trek. I see you've got Spock on the wall in the background.
Yeah, one of my favorite shows and a film series.
I did have a quick look, at some of your stuff before, and obviously, you write stories and you're a criminal. You're learning to be a criminologist, or you qualified.
Yeah, so basically, I did a degree at Kingston University of London, which was my
Oh, nice.
undergraduate degree in criminology. And then I went on to do a master's program, which was in criminal psychology, but still had
Oh,
elements
wow,
of criminology as a one of some of the modules as well.
that's cool. Um, so what I like to do, mate, with everybody that I speak to is just start from the beginning. Start from when you were a young boy, and we'll work our way up to the present day. So if you just want to take it from there, mate, where you're from, where you grew up, hobbies, things like that, and we'll get it going.
Yeah, sounds good. So basically, I was born in the UK and stuff.
Hmm.
So I class myself as British Muslim and stuff because my parents are originally born in Pakistan and stuff.
Assalamu
So
alaikum.
thank you very much. So basically, it's an interesting story. So basically, they were born and raised in Pakistan, so lived there for for I guess a few years. Then they moved to obviously then moved to the UK where I was born. Then we actually moved to the States, so which is
Oh, cool.
California, and I think where Los Angeles, California,
Yeah.
because my dad, so he's a graphic designer, so he worked on with along with my uncle stuff. He worked on films such as Shrek and like the animation DreamWorks animation films and
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
So which was quite a big project. So he moved there for work, and he did that, I believe, for a few years. I have to say, I think I've said roughly 10 years. He's been doing that. Obviously, after 10 years of living in the States and stuff, moved actually back to the UK stuff. Like start like a new chapter. That's I guess did my education, obviously finished continued my education primary school, and also then after primary school moved to a secondary school, which I'd obviously studied like which for my GCSEs, as well as
Hmm.
then stayed in the same secondary school for when I moved to did the sixth form for A levels. But obviously that's when I guess you could say my spark for criminology and true crime really started to kick in. I would it's actually an interesting story. I actually tell people this because one of the course I did in at sixth form was uniform public service, which is like a BTEC 2 year
Okay.
2 year course and stuff. And one of the modules actually was criminology and crime and prevention. And it wasn't actually until because my original plan was that I was thinking, okay, after sixth form, I'm gonna go do a apprenticeship. And stuff because I had a few ideas what I want to do, apprenticeship wise. But then we had this event called the UCAS convention event, which was for which they had specifically for university courses if you wanted to go
Hmm.
down that route. So I went along with it because it was like a school sort of like a trip. So I went along there to see if maybe I could find something advice wise and maybe get some new insights. And actually, for the story, I was actually walking around seeing what course I wanted to do, and I came across one course which I think surprisingly was actually advertised for Kingston University and stuff. That went there, and actually one of they as well as having the student ambassadors and people who are actually students themselves who study at the course. They actually had a guy. His name is John Douglas, and he's actually a criminologist. And I'll tell you, his story is when I was talking to him, his story inspired me so much because he was saying that he's also as well as writing true crime books, he's actually interviewed real life killers as well, such as Richard Ramirez, Charles Manson, and he was actually
Wow.
and his investigation helped actually to get I think Richard Ramirez, who was I believe a serial killer did in the 1980s, locked up and convicted, as well as Manson.
Was Richard Ramirez, if he was the murderer in L.A., right? Was he the Night Stalker or something like that? Is that right in saying that, or is that somebody else?
Yeah, that's the nickname, the Night Stalker, because he would obviously go past people's windows and sneak in at night.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I think because my girlfriend, she's a bit like yourself. I call her. Um, I say that she's a murderer in training because she just loves watching. She loves watching anything about graphic murder and things like that. And yeah, she's really interested. And I think we watched. He was he Mexican? Obviously, with the name Richard Ramirez. He's obviously Latino. Um, yeah, wasn't he? Did he? Did they find somebody in a bin, or did he put him in a duffel bag or something? Is that one of the initial clues or DNA or something? Am I right in saying that? I can remember something, but I can't exactly remember what it was.
Yeah, I believe so because my understanding is that so when he actually got caught and convicted, they actually they used DNA evidence to I think because he was in a car driving somewhere and I think he stopped the car somewhere and I think because he murdered someone at that moment, so I think they obviously were onto him for I think for a while, but they didn't know who the Night Stalker was, so that was when they put the face to the man who did the crimes, like most of these serial killers.
So obviously you're big into storytelling as well, from what I've read and seen of your stuff. You like writing books. Big film fanatic.
Yeah, I'm actually a huge film lover, definitely.
Me too. I don't really watch normal TV or really series and things like that. A lot of it is films, but we can get into that a bit later on.
Yeah.
So obviously you said you went to university and you studied in criminology and things like that. What was it that sort of sparked your interest in all of that? Is it something that you enjoy, sort of trying to delve deep into the mindsets and the psychological aspect of serial killers, I guess, and murderers and things like that?
Yeah, so basically, so it's a 3-year course for at the so at a university degree, and I think because obviously what they did that when you first start university, like first year, is like they do core subjects, so subjects you want to,
Yeah.
that is like mandatory. Then I think when you get to second and third year, they say, okay, you have a choice. What is it that you have interest in and you want to pursue, and that's
Hmm.
going to help you basis with your dissertation. And I think, I will also, even the final year was a stressful and busy year. I would say that was probably my favorite year as well because that's when the two modules that really stuck to me. Was one of them was obviously the dissertation module because surprisingly I actually did my dissertation on serial killers and the mass media stuff, which I was talked about, and I actually talked about fictional representations versus factual representations as well as gender, crimes as well, which I could discuss in a minute. But I think one of my favorite modules, I would say, out of all of them, was a topic called transnational crime, which is any crime that happens across borders. So like something like drug trafficking, human trafficking, were classed as that. And I actually loved that module because I thought that was going to be my most disliked module. But when you get into it, it had everything that I enjoyed, which is the politics. It had the crime. It had, all these different debates. And I think that's when I got introduced to a encyclopedia, a book called the Transnational Handbook of Criminology, which was introduced by one of my lecturers at university. And actually, when I looked at that, actually sparked my critical thinking, and it all come up with all these debates. And every time anyone who I meet it was into true crime, I would always say, "Hey guys, do you want to have a debate? Let's talk about serial killers, because it's something I could talk about all day. It doesn't matter." I think I remember actually surprised that I actually mentioned that. I think I was actually talking to someone and and the conversation if I started at I think 8 o'clock in the evening. And actually, we're talking about obviously true crime serial killers all the way till 1 o'clock in the morning, and it's like so fascinating. I just loved it so much.
Yeah, it's definitely it's. Me personally, mate, and don't take this the wrong way. I think you've got to be a bit crazy yourself to try and to show interest in that the serial killer and the mindset. But I guess especially the psychological aspect. I mean, you'll know a hell of a lot more of it than I will, but I can imagine it's fascinating. Delving deep into the mind of somebody so sinister. I can imagine that's really you very informative and interesting, right?
Yeah, definitely. And actually, speaking about going to the depths of mind, because there was actually, but they did actually a true crime exhibition which I went to, which was called a circle exhibition. And actually, when people, asked me after the experience, I said, yeah, it was fascinating, but it's like, you're going through the minds of these individual killers because you had real possessions of the murderers, like Ted Bundy, Richard Ramirez, and like, books signed by them. And I tell people that, after the exhibition, I lost sleep for literally a whole week. I had to sleep with my lights on because even though I'm a criminologist, I read the stuff, the books, but like, witnessing this, it's like I was in the same room as Ted Bundy, looking at his baseball cap.
Wow. So you were almost putting yourself in that environment then.
Yeah, and a true crime, fanatic.
Wow. Wow. So it's obviously what is your role at the moment then with the background that you've got? What sort of job role or title do you hold at the moment?
So at the moment, so it's like so this instant thing. Before I used to be a teaching assistant, so while I was at university, and I was doing like part time, when you earn money on the side to
Yeah,
get
yeah,
by.
yeah.
Then I think like I then went into, obviously I was always a storyteller, and I was into writing, which is obviously one of my key passions of mine. And I thought myself, originally I thought, okay, I'm gonna write a book, a novel that was gonna be like gonna get my story out there, because I had all these ideas on my Word document, which I wanted to bring the crime fiction, I wanted to bring the true crime and the political aspects as well. And then I think when it came like last year, I came across this course they were doing at the National Theatre in London and stuff. And originally, that's when I actually thought to myself, wait, this is what I actually want to do, because I'm creativity. I love creativity. I love writing. So maybe I could put the chronology and writing together. Why not pursue it? And I thought, okay, the theater stuff, because I'm a huge film lover. And stuff, so I thought theater is a visual, a production, and you have a chance to grab that audience attention. So I thought, you know what? And I came across it, this on the BBC website, which is the Royal Court Theatre London, and they were looking for new playwrights and stories. So what I did, I got to my laptop, got on my notebook, and start writing this brilliant crime fiction story, which is staying on my mind for for months. It's like, wait, I have to get the story out, because and actually the story is about a true crime writer whose biggest fan is a serial killer and stuff. So I thought, let me make reference to real life pop culture serial killers, bring all my knowledge together in this wonderful story. And I thought, so I'm currently a writer for the theater.
Oh wow, that must be a really cool job, especially like yourself. If you've got a creative mind, that must be perfect for you, I guess.
Yeah, I love every moment of it.
I actually wrote. I'm not going to say a book. I wrote a story. So when I was in school, I've always had a very creative memory, creative brain. Sorry, not creative memory. Um, because I was a very, I wouldn't say isolated child, but I like to spend a lot of time on my own. And I just used to watch film after film after film after film. And I think I was about 20, 23, 24 maybe. And I wrote a storyline to a book, probably 100 pages. And then I put it down one day and it just disappeared into into the darkness, I guess. But it was called The Devil's Dare. And it was basically, so you've seen the film The Great Gatsby?
Yeah, the classic film.
So yeah, so it was basically a mix between The Great Gatsby and I'll probably say American Psycho. Um, so it was obviously it was about a storyline about a young boy who came over to America in I think it was the 1940s, 16, 17 years old, didn't have any identity, didn't have any name as such. Um, created a different persona, if you like. Managed to work his way up with some rich, powerful people, and just his sort of envy for the rich and the famous. He became rich and famous, but also started murdering everyone as well.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, I enjoy stories and I enjoy films, and it's something that is extremely personal to me. That was one of the reasons why I wanted to get you on here, because your love for storytelling, your love for the creation or the creative side of our brains is something that I'd really, I'd want to take something from today. And also one of the other reasons why I wanted to ask you to come on is obviously from the criminology aspect, looking into this psychological aspect of men and why our mental health can deteriorate into, evil, doing bad things, hurting the people we love, and sort of try and get your perception and your take on that, I guess.
Yeah, so it's actually interesting when you look at the psychological aspects of the criminal mind, especially when it comes to male killers and stuff. And actually, make a reference here because a film that actually connects to this very well. There was I believe it was in the 1994 they made this film, which was by Oliver Stone, directed by Quentin Tarantino, wrote the story, and it's called Natural Born Killers, which is about these two mass murderers, and they were actually specifically looking at gender roles. They had a male killer and also a female killer, and they looked at the backgrounds of what actually drove it. And about the background when the film came out, stuff, it was actually people classed it as controversial because the reason they classed it controversial was that it inspired numerous copycat crimes in real life, which is I think the Columbine school shooting, which is a tragedy. They actually said use the nickname Natural Born Killers, blamed it on the film, saying that what they saw it as glamorized media and stuff. But when you actually look at the real psychological aspects, I think it's an interesting one because it's like I'll just use it as an example because you got someone like Ted Bundy. Let's take him as a individual because his childhood, from what I read and what I've seen, he had the perfect childhood. He claimed he didn't get, he was a victim of abuse like some individual would be. He went to I think the best university schools and he's a practicing lawyer with a brilliant IQ, and even like the judge and the lawyers at the court said, hey, you got a brilliant mind. I would love to have you in my courtroom practice for me. But then it's like what actually went wrong with his mind when he started murdering all these women and stuff, picking up the young women on the road pretending to be a hitchhiker, then actually murdered them. Because what they said about him was he came across someone as a bit like Jekyll Hyde. He was someone who was charming, good looking, wore a smart attire and suit, and I think and he was always polite, well mannered, and I actually was watching something on a documentary on YouTube where said someone like Ted Bundy could be your average student in a university room or your workplace, but you won't know that he's a serial killer because he appeared so normal. But it's like and actually I was thinking like this way, maybe it was that okay, even though he had the perfect childhood, but maybe somewhere during his childhood and adulthood, maybe there were signs as he was showing that there wasn't something right with him and he needed help, but the people around him just ignored that fact because I thought, okay, maybe that is just a normal part of his growing up. Maybe nothing wrong, and maybe I was having a conversation with her. I said maybe if he got maybe the help that he needed while ago when he was a youth, a child, and got people actually listened to what how he was feeling emotionally and stuff, then it's like maybe he would have probably had a different life growing up.
Do you believe that people can be born evil?
I think it's actually an interesting question. It's like when it comes to that question, I'll say it's like half because I think truly no one's really, I think in my opinion, born evil, because when you a child is the most innocent being on earth and stuff, and when when you're growing up through life and stuff, obviously no one's I believe no one's born with hatred and those type of behaviors. I believe is learned depending on the environmental factors, depending on your where you're and your factors around you and people you're around. And I think a perfect example of this is there was, I think but the James Bulger case, I can't remember, and I think that when the news came out that what they did and it was breaking, it was actually shocked the whole of one of the crimes that shocked the whole UK and Britain, because it was, I think they were 10 years old when they did the crime, and the boy that they killed was 2 years old, or he was a toddler. But it was shocking because you would never have, normally when it comes to crimes like that, you're thinking, okay, an adult would did that, or a grown person. But when you have a child an innocent child who commits another murder, especially toddler, it's like, what it makes you question what actually went wrong with these individuals to commit such a heinous crime.
Yeah, and it was so that was in Liverpool, right? Wasn't it? Where it was taking place.
Yeah, I believe so, Liverpool. I know they got the boy from the shopping mall, then they went somewhere to
Yeah,
train
yeah,
tracks.
that's it. Yeah, and so we only live probably 45 minutes from Liverpool, and I actually drove past that shopping centre a couple of years after it, and I always remember having the conversation as the graphic detail as to what they did to that young boy.
Yeah.
And it's like, how could, and that's sort of where the question stems from, is can you be born evil? It's like, two young boys being able to do such heinous things to
Thanks.
a
Yeah.
baby.
And it's a
And it's
child.
like, yeah, yeah. And it's like, what is the mindset? It's extremely difficult for even somebody, who's as educated as yourself, I'd imagine, it's extremely difficult to try and decipher that type of mindset and try and learn to understand how a child could act in such a heinous way, I guess.
Yeah, it's horrific.
Mm. So I've got a couple of questions
Yep.
that I've written down before, mate. So one of my first questions is, do you see any patterns in criminal behaviour? And we'll put it on serial killers, say, or murderers. Do you see any patterns in criminal behaviour that society overlooks?
I think yeah, that's a very interesting question. And I was saying it to someone who studies serial killers and read about them. That I'll use serial killers as a prime example. Is they always say that most of the patterns is that whether someone like Richard Ramirez, Jeffrey Dahmer, the serial killer, is that they were also started before they committed murder against human beings. They committed murder against animals that they either found and started murdering them, or they were exposed to graphic material, whether it's reading or watching stuff. And I think normally they said, obviously, okay, let's put, you have them exposed to graphic material on one thing, but when you're killing, there's psychological, theory and also research that says any individual who does, or commits a crime or kills an animal, for example, they're most likely in the adulthood at some point to do it against a human individual, commit
Oh,
harmful behavior.
all right, okay. So you tend to see sort of a commonality between people who hurt and kill animals will later go on in life to commit murder, I guess.
Yeah, that's one of the examples and analytic common traits in serial killers specifically.
Do you believe that murder it can be an addiction? Because obviously we mentioned about the graphic material that a lot of these serial killers and things like that are exposed to at younger ages. I think Ted Bundy said it as well I think it was his final interview before he was executed, that the interviewer asked him something along the lines of, why do you think you were the way you were? And I think I'm probably going to say he used it as an excuse, but he said it was almost because of like pornographic material and things like that he was exposed to at a young age. He wasn't sort of similar to an addict, or whatever type of addict it may be. As soon as you're exposed to that dopamine hit or that dopamine hit in the brain, you crave it more and more, and the more you crave it, the more the more you need, I guess, whatever the substance or the addiction is, you need more and more of it to fulfill that dopamine level. And by doing so, your sort of connection with reality, I'm going to say, becomes more more distant. You're separating yourself more and more from reality, the more and more you're sort of getting into this addictive mindset.
Yeah, it's actually really interesting because I think they use the word gratification when it comes to these serial killers, when it comes to murder and the sadistic behavior, I would call it. And it's like because I think what they do is they get pleasure from it. So when they kill, let's say one individual, two individuals, they can't stop because they got enjoyment out of it. Gives them that pleasure gratification that they always wanted because they obviously read the stuff they got exposed to it at a young age. So they probably thought, okay, this is real life. They want to experience this. What is it that it like to do it against, in this case, another human being, and they keep doing it. Before they know it, they're gone after hundreds of people. Because I believe Ted Bundy, then no one actually knew how many people he actually, or women he actually committed crimes. Because I said it was quite a few hundred. Because I know that with his type of behavior was quite I would say quite strange, because it's like what he would also do, the victims that he murdered and stuff. He will always, I believe, that he would have all these fantasies, or he will sleep with the bodies of the corpse of the victims they murdered, which is, you would think that's not normal behavior for a human being
No.
to have, especially you've murdered. Because some of the criminals, what they do, they commit the murder, then they bury the body and leave. But Ted Bundy went to extreme lengths. He actually wanted to get that gratification. And I think this is where the connection of the mass media comes in, because it gives that media sensation. Because obviously, even though the media is trying to put him on the front page, is trying to say, okay, he's done all these crimes, we need to get this guy convicted. But he sees it as a media spotlight, and he wants to do more, make him do more crimes like all these serial killers. And that's why they say the media, I call it, the reason that's they call it the media glamorized sensation, which is, I think, also contributes to these individuals committing crimes.
I heard a story. I think it was on the Joe Rogan podcast a couple of years ago. They had a police detective. I can't remember what state it was from. He'd actually interviewed many years ago, obviously, but he'd interviewed a man and woman. They'd been out on a date. I think they were only 15 or 16 or something, and they'd been out on a date. And I think they were walking home, or they'd gone somewhere together in a car. And because they were only young and they were out so late, they seen this car approaching them. I think they were in some woods or down a lane or something. So they hid in the long grass, and they were hiding in the long grass, and the car pulled up. And they said all we could hear was footsteps. So that obviously they hid low and they stayed quiet, and they waited for the footsteps to get back in the car and drive off. Anyway, a couple of days later, they found the body where the man and woman were hiding, and it was actually Ted Bundy. It was actually Ted Bundy disposing one of the women that he'd murdered, and they were probably 10 feet away from him at the time, and he didn't see them. How terrifying is that to know?
Yeah, that's actually insane, because you would never expect to be next to a serial killer like that. And actually,
Yeah,
this is actually interesting, story, because they made a film about it, but it was also about a real life serial killer and stuff. And I think I can't remember his first name, but his name was Rodney, and he was also American serial killer, and he was doing his killing spree. He was on this dating show. And the whole point of dating show is that obviously whoever won would get matched with this female, like a blind date.
yeah,
And he was so happened to be, because he went undercover, like, to be a smart guy, the casual, typical guy that all these women will want to date and stuff. And he actually got matched with this one of the females on the show and stuff. And obviously his plan was obviously gain her trust and commit murder and stuff. But this is when the events took a turn. I think because she obviously figured out, okay, that this guy, he's a murderer, because she heard put the bodies together and put a face to it. And so what he did, when he asked her for her number, she gave him a fake number, actually, to put him off and stuff. And obviously he thought that it was legit. And I think the way that I think it he actually got caught was that she actually she was getting his trial. She was actually giving evidence to the police, like exposing him,
Oh, well.
and like and actually I think it was in New Mexico. He actually finally got caught where before he was able to kill another victim. The police found out what he was doing, and they actually then raided his apartment where he was staying, because he would obviously stay in different places, and they found out, okay, this guy, he's a serial killer.
Did you say they've made a film about that?
Yeah, it was actually a Netflix film. I can't remember the name of it, but I think it was based on his life.
I think I might have. Now you're saying that, I think I might have watched it. No doubt my girlfriend's watched it because she watches all that type of stuff. But yeah, I'll definitely have a look for that. Next question, mate. What societal factors contribute most to crime, and how can they be addressed? I think you already touched on that with your previous answer, but if you want to elaborate a bit more.
I think I think some factors that contribute to it could be either the people around you, or it could be environmental factors, which is key factors. And I think because it's instant there, because it's like there's obviously a debate on this, because it's like people who reoffend when they leave prison and stuff. They said the reason they commit further crimes or reoffend is because they have nowhere else to go. They go back to the same environment, or because their family or friends, let's say if they've been in there for good few years in prison and stuff, and all the family friends have moved on with their lives and stuff, or don't want anything to do with it. So it's like they have no choice but to go back to the environment, and that environment was toxic, because it actually was the reason why they committed that like crime, which is drug habits, or whether that's murder and stuff. And I think it's an interesting thing, because it's like people these individuals, like in prison, some of them talk about they actually want to change their life around, they want to move forward, but it's like I believe society needs to do more to help individuals and stuff, because I think one of the biggest, and I think it's not really talked enough, which is mental health. I believe it's a big factor, especially when it comes to men's mental health, because let's say, I know mental health is a discussed topic, but when you talk about men's mental health and link that to, let's say, criminal behavior stuff, they always what's called dismiss that factor, thinking, wait, okay, was he suffering from depression, was he suffering from anxiety, or did he have a specific disorder that maybe could explain that maybe we could get him help, therapy, to get his life, or that individual life turned around, instead of putting them in a what's called prison cell, have no support, and they're not, and it doesn't help when you're around other criminals as well in that prison environment, because I think because some prisons, like I believe what I was actually watching a documentary in Singapore and stuff, and I think I get their rule is that, okay, they lock the individual up because it's a maximum security for 23 hours, and they only have 1 hour to do exercise, but they have the meals in prison. And what they do, they don't give them a bed, they give them a mat and a blanket to sleep on the floor, because they said these people commit murder, you don't deserve a bed, because it's a luxury compared to other places, and they need to serve their time. And what it was showing you, so those individuals who were in that environment, because also we as individuals, human beings, need human contact, whether that's through phone, whether there's some sort of human connection. And if you're locked up in a cell for, I don't know, 23 hours, or even solitary confinement, you don't have that connection with anyone. And then when you go back out that prison environment, back to that, well, it's like, how do they connect with that person, with another human being? I think it's almost difficult.
Yeah, and I'm glad you touched on that, mate, because obviously you've seen some of the videos that I put out there, and I think that this is my 28th episode now today. And the reason why I've started this is to try and give some form of education to men on, how mental health and how our own instability influences our actions. Because for a long time, I was a very unstable individual who lived in a very toxic environment. I'm open and honest about it. I lived in an addictive state for 20 years. Very emotionally unregulated, shall we say. And I blamed everything. It's like what we were saying before. I'd blame the environment. I'd blame my friends. I'd blame other people. I'd blame anything. I'd blame anything I could rather than blame myself. And through education over the last couple of years, again, it's taken me a long time. I'm still learning now. Everything that I'm doing at the moment with the podcast, speaking to people who are far more educated than me, like yourself. I believe I'm finding a journey or finding a path that is going to give guidance to other people. I'm 38 years old, so touch wood, I've still got a long time left on this planet. And I believe that I've found this purpose now. I believe that I'm willing to take action and help a lot of men because, at this moment in time, men's mental health is huge. And we as men, we don't, the majority of us don't know how to deal with our mental health.
Yeah.
A lot of men won't go and see therapists. A lot of men won't open up and have the conversation. And I guess the biggest thing that I'm trying to do here is, give people that possibility of being able to speak. I mean, I'm just a normal guy, as you can see. I'm covered in tattoos, and I'm not very well educated. I believe that I'm learning a lot. I listen to audio books, and I'm studying neurolinguistics at the moment, psychology, stoicism, all these types of things. And I believe it's good. I think one of the biggest keys we could be given as a man is to educate ourselves. And I've said in the past, society would rather medicate rather than educate. And that's not the way forward. I understand we live in a society where, especially medical medication, it's a $1 billion or £1 billion industry. So we've got to keep that wheel turning. But the biggest thing I think men need to understand is how to educate themselves and how to be vulnerable and how to accept that we failed in certain situations and learn to grow from that, and this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. This is why I'm getting people like you on here. And every single, I don't just get anybody on the podcast. The one thing that I'm doing now is if I find somebody interesting, I want to speak to them because for me, it's educational. There'll be things that you'll tell me today that I'll be able to take away and add to my, my personality, I'd say.
Yeah, I think definitely mental health is definitely a big topic, especially men's mental health, because obviously, like I think it's only mental health. Obviously, is something I've been experiencing for probably my entire life, but it's only I
Have
think
you?
only recently, like and when I'm recently only last year, I've actually started being fully open about it. I talk about it
Right.
because I always thought I can mask and keep it to keep it to myself, and it's interesting when you touched on the point of when you're being angry and stuff. And I think that's obviously obviously to only talk to people who around me in circle. And it's actually I was actually I think last year and stuff. Obviously I knew with like I guess you could say a close close friend, a female. And so,
Hmm.
and she was actually obviously a victim obviously of like
Yeah.
sexual assault and stuff. And obviously when someone obviously she had courage to open up to me because when you're on the level of trust and stuff. And
Hmm.
obviously it was like it's like horrific because no one deserves to go through that
Mm.
thing. And also you can see it also impacted her mental health greatly and stuff, to the point that she then couldn't see any other way and stuff. And
Yeah.
obviously and then told people like for obviously for for a if I don't know, for it's like even though it was 9 months, but 9 months was the longest 9 months of my life, especially 2024. I'd say that was my lowest and lowest point in my mental health, because I was thinking this person meant everything to me, close person, and I was angry at the people that assaulted her because the person didn't escape justice. She didn't have she came from a toxic back her family members that were toxic to her, and I blame the system as well. I start thinking, what they could have done more to help this innocent individual did anything. And I think what made it even more difficulty was that this person, even though they had their own struggles with their mental health, they actually, I would say, I'll tell people this, actually pulled me out the doctors when I was at my lowest point about, going through a breakdown and stuff, and actually showed me that the good still exists out there in the world. And actually, because I think like when you've been ignored for so long that people don't understand, this person had empathy, actually understood what I was going through, even with a few words. And I thought, what, this is what I've been hoping for, or rather one person to truly understand like what is it, what like. And actually I would say to people, it actually changed my life, made a difference. It gave me a path again in life when I because I tell people I went at 2024, I think at the beginning of 2024, it was that point that I thought, okay, you know what, I feel like giving in to this. But I think what showed me that light, that positive again, it gave me a reason to I guess you could say, when someone saves your life, to go on again.
I definitely know that feeling, mate. I definitely do. Well, you said that was the darkest time of your life, of your life. What sort of at the most difficult time of your life? What were your behaviours like? What were you? How were you dealing or not dealing with your mental health?
I think one of the biggest behavior that I told to people is that I was experiencing a lot of breakdowns and stuff. So
Mhm.
that'll be either nighttime or that'll be it's in the daytime. And I think nighttime, they always say that when you're laying in that bed, you're with your thoughts alone and
Oh yeah.
stuff. And I think because in the daytime, when you occupy your mind, you're busy. You gotta with friends, you can have a good time. Then when the nighttime and stuff, it's like reality actually hits you and stuff. It's like you're thinking, questioning all these different things, and I've obviously tell people that there's been days where I've broken down tears at night because it's like it takes you back to the past, to what happened, and thinking you wish that things could be different and stuff. And it's instant way how the mind works, because I think that other part of my behavior that people say you don't really know the reality of depression until you actually experience it. And the thing is, it's like, obviously I knew what depression was because I've seen you when you see like your famous people you admire, like Robert Williams, go through depression. You think, what? Okay, it's shocking. But I was like, I remember, therefore I would say a month or months or so, I was like, didn't have the energy to leave my bed, didn't have the energy to go out, meet people, even neglecting my I guess you could say hobbies as stuff. And it's like then it like made my mental state even worse, because it's like then I think what I did, I tried reaching out to people, thinking, asking, can we, are you free to talk? Can we actually talk, talk about it if you have 5 minutes? And I remember, like, when you get pushed away by people, it's not, it makes it even worse, they're paid, because it's like, you want to talk to someone, but you can't because you've been pushed away or be told to man up, which is like, not an easy experience. And I think I was actually, fortunate enough to actually, have like 2, 3 close friends who actually, were there for me from the beginning, they're through the lowest moments, and they actually slowly, I guess you could say, got me back into a, positive mindset. And I think, and it got me actually, and then I got back into writing again, my creativity again. And I would say, writing actually is, was the biggest thing that actually saved my life. I got, me at the doctors, and that's what this the story in Reddit, which is a crime fiction, is actually created from. I tell people the story behind it. It was actually created from a dark place, but I turned something negative into something positive with my wonderful characters and stories.
Well, thank you for sharing that, by the way. That actually comes perfectly onto my next question. And my next question is, how does your background, your experiences, and your education shape your storytelling?
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting question. And I think, when you like it, because obviously, like, when you look at all these, writers or even like creative people with the film directors and stuff, and obviously one of the people who I obviously admired was, and I still love, is Quentin Tarantino. His films, and obviously, it's a bit different because when you watch his films, it's entertainment. But like when I remember like when I was in Lewisburg, I just looked at his background to see what actually inspired him to do because I thought myself, I'm a creative person. I want to, one day my dream is to make, films as well, work in films. And this guy, I
Mhm.
got inspired by it. So I looked at his background and I thought most people thought, okay, he had it easy because he's the biggest film director in Hollywood. But his life wasn't easy. He was sort of being broke. He had no money. He's working in a DVD store as well, trying to make his first short films and to be hoping that one day he could be in that director chair. I know it. Only that I think, when like he also had people doubted him as well, saying he would never make it in life. And I think that's instant there because obviously, as well as when I found my creativity, you're thinking that okay, you find it creative, you find it passion. I'm gonna make it and write these stories for theater, hoping work my way through life to make it,
Mm.
for films. And I think like, I also had people who didn't believe in me. People told me, hey, you would never make it as a writer because you haven't you're not on the same level as Tarantino stuff before they even read my work and stuff. And I thought, yeah, and I was just talking to someone the other day. It's like when it's a different feeling when people tear you down when you climb the ladder to success and stuff. And it's like you can either let it break you or you can make it and
Yeah,
stuff because the choice is yours. And I told myself, you know what? Regardless whatever life throws at me and where it hurdles, because regardless you could get judged no matter what you do in life.
yeah,
So I thought, you know what? We only live once. This is my passion, and I think I remember I saw this, saying, and I think, from like a film that I watched, which was that visions are worth fighting for. Why spend your life making someone else's dreams? And that what I applied that to my craft because it's like this is my dream, this is my passion. I want to make something on myself, tell the stories about humanity, people, society, and hoping that maybe it can actually resonate with one or two individuals.
well, you'll know this already, mate, but there are not many people in this world that are living their life honestly and living their life working, doing something that they love and they're
Yeah,
passionate about. So you've definitely achieved something that not many people get to achieve. And I wish you all the best in doing the work that you're doing, mate.
thank you, appreciate
Um,
that.
and that's, again, why leading back to this podcast. And I've got a vision of where I want to take this. I'm not in the financial um, bracket where I can just quit my job and go and start doing this full time at the moment. I haven't got a great background when it comes to education and things like that. I've probably educated myself more in the last 6 months than I probably have in my whole life. Um, but it's brilliant. I'm loving this journey that I'm on, and hopefully in the future I can get to a similar state where you are, and you know, be able to do this as a full time job because y- helping people is something. I think I'm an empath. I think I'm a very you know passionate person. I enjoy helping people, and I think I'm good at it as well. And that's the key part for me. I think I'm genuinely good at it, and the more I learn, the better I'm going to get. Um, so we'll go to the next question, mate.
Yep.
Uh, where are we? Are there ethical considerations when writing about real life crime and social issues?
I think that's actually a very interesting question because obviously when I was doing my degree of criminology and stuff, they always say you need ethical consideration to do your dissertation, and so because that's actually a true crime based, and obviously that makes sense because if you're interviewing any of the victims of crimes, you need that permission to do it. So I think when it comes to true crime, I would say yes, you need that ethical approval and stuff. But then it's like it's difficult when it comes to fictional story, and I'll actually use this my story as an example because even though I've told people I'm writing about this unsolved murder, a crime fiction, it's like I made reference to real life killers and murderers that themselves, as because it's set in the 1980s and stuff. And I guess so far people who read my works, that they love that concept, they love that the background of it and stuff. But it's like it'd be interesting to see if anyone will pick up, say, like you made reference to real life people you based it on, these real life kids, did you get the permission of these this individuals, or did he interview this person? I think that's where, like, when it's interesting when it comes to writers and stuff, and especially whether it's film writing or whether it's writing for television or scripts and stuff, even play scripts and stuff. And I noticed that one thing I've actually noticed, and it's actually interesting because I was the other day like got a whole collection of playbooks because to get inspired by it and stuff. And one of the playwrights, his name is Simon Stevens, and he writes about different issues around around the world. And one of the issues he did was a political story. And so, but what was like, and even though it's a fictional story, he actually based it on what was happening in the United States with Donald Trump and all the issues with the election and stuff. And it's not obviously showing Donald Trump in a negative light. And obviously, and even though it got very good responses, people loved that the concept of it and stuff. It did come with a lot of criticism and controversial as well. So why did he base it on a real life individual America who's a president of the United States of America? And I think it's difficult because obviously, how can he get the permission from someone in power like that? Because he's a playwright who's starting off to get stories in the UK.
My mind's gone blank now, but the British director who wrote Snatch and Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels, what's his name? I forgot.
I can't remember to top of my head, to be honest.
What's his name? He wrote the series The Gentleman as well that was on Netflix. I'm
Was
gonna
it
Google him.
I can't remember. It's obviously Michael Scorsese. I can't remember. I know.
Snatch. Let's find out. It's on the tip of my tongue. Where are we? Guy Ritchie.
Yep.
So Guy Ritchie, every film that he's ever directed. So have you seen Snatch or Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels? Have you seen them films?
Yeah, I think I've seen them a while ago. Yeah.
So what he tends to do is he takes personal story. So a lot of the stories he said is from older gentlemen that he'd sit in the pub drinking with, and they tell him stories about back in the 60s or the 70s or whatever they did this. And almost every film that he's written or directed, he has just brought all those stories, real life stories, together and put them into films. And they're Lock, Stock and Snatch and things like that. They're fantastic films as well. I love them. I think he's brilliant, Guy Ritchie.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's interesting because I was actually reading his book, and he's a film director, Oliver Stone. You probably heard of Oliver Stone, and I think I tell people he's one of my favorite directors and writers because he does something that's different from what other directors do, which is, I think, even though he's wrote fictional stuff, like he's the guy behind Platoon, which was about the Vietnam War, and also
I've seen Platoon.
And even though I believe that's a fictional film, but obviously he did real life films as well, but like the president, like George Bush and Nixon, I believe. And what I loved about him is even the people class him as a controversial, guy, and even about conspiracy theories. But I actually love his work. I'm actually huge, fan of his work because even I think what I love is about the JFK film the JFK film he did, and about the president. He does it from his point of view, but he comes up with this conspiracy theories. Wait, Kennedy was probably assassinated because of this reason here. Well, the CIA covered it up, and I loved. And even though what I love about, and I actually admire about him, is that even though he knows that it's going to spark some sort of debate in society, he carries on making the films, the stories that he loves telling, because I think what he's trying to show you is that no matter what happens, what story you tell, whether fictional or reality, you are going to get judged by a few people. But he believed in his passion. He believed in his passion. He believed in his this dream to be this filmmaker. Stuff, and he obviously, wrote the story. I believe that he's actually doing, a new film. I can't remember if it's coming out next year, but he said that he's doing one about, Ronald Reagan, which is going to be a very interesting film because obviously Ronald Reagan, I think people know, didn't have a necessarily good side that we all think he did.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah.
Have you thought about going into film, trying to get on the stage yourself? No.
Yeah, actually, speaking of, I was actually speaking to a few people about this because because I told people one of my dreams is that even though I'm writing for theater at the moment, I'm gonna eventually be like either writing films or make my own films one day. And I know even though like most people, success, it takes a long time for success. All you can do is
Yeah.
work hard or do it on the road. And one thing I've actually started recently because I would say part of thing that actually helped me through my mental health was I did a course called the masterclass course online and stuff. And one of the courses they had was Art of Filmmaking by Quentin Tarantino. And in there, it's like a collection of videos of like what he worked for him, and he had workbooks as well and scripts that he wrote. And I'll read the scripts every day, every night, study, analyze, and make notes and stuff. And I thought to myself, you know what? I'm gonna take the first step, of what? Let me try to make my first short film. So what I did was, even though at the moment I don't have an expensive camera, I can make it on my iPhone and start practice there. So what did I went to London, central London. Went to all these places, landmarks. I just filmed what I could on my phone, put it together on my my laptop and stuff, and put the music to get a title and make a tell a story that I could tell in a short amount of time. And what an idea actually spoke to me, and I thought it was interesting because I thought and this comes to again related to theater writing, because one of my at the moment I'm doing a crime fiction, but the next story I've got planned out and I want to write is like an autism love story and stuff. And one of the reasons I want to do that is because I want to cover themes of mental health and give the community of autism people a voice, because I feel it needs more representation in the media and stuff. And I was gonna use my experience as well. This guy, it'll be about the monologue and stuff. So this guy will be writing letters to lifelong love interests who are slowly becoming distant. Well, the universe brought them together, but also apart. So he's like every day writing letters, and it'd be like one character. And I think what I want to show you is that even though with one character, it can still tell a compelling story there.
This is going quite well, this podcast, mate, because what you've just said there leads me on to my next question.
Thank you.
So how can we use storytelling to raise awareness about crime, justice, and mental health?
Yeah, I think that's I love that question actually, because my theme is that I'm a writer who loves writing about humanity, people, society as my main themes and stuff. So it's like I would look at all these real life world issues, whether there's war, conflict, or crime and stuff. And I think and those have been the basis of my inspiration for my stories and stuff. I thought let me put it in a fictional story. And I was saying one of the shows I love was the Twilight Zone and stuff. And what I loved about it, he actually at the time those issues about fascism or politics weren't well discussed. So obviously it's a new topic in that era in the 1950s and 60s. And I thought to myself, that actually needs more representation in modern day society and stuff. And now I noticed, on theater stage, it's my chance, to get my story onto the stage, to maybe get people to see it visually. Maybe they can see a message behind it and stuff. Because what I want to do is like, even with this crime fiction, even though it's a fictional story, so I'm trying to show you a message that that as what's called human beings and stuff, we even though we're not physical monsters, we all have a good or bad inside of us that can cause. And I'm hoping that this production, this story could hopefully convey with the audience and make them question okay, what is it as a society we're doing, especially set in the 1980s Los Angeles, which is where crime was a huge, I believe in 1980 Los Angeles crime was a huge issue. That's why I wanted to set in that particular era, that particular, setting, because, you got the crime rate was, I believe, drug addicts, or drug trafficking was a huge topic. So that's the perfect time to set my story.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds like you know what you're doing, mate. It sounds like you've got a plan, you've got a direction of where you want to go. I've mentioned this story a couple of weeks ago on a podcast. Myself and my girlfriend and the kids, we went to Tenerife a couple of years ago on holiday. And my girlfriend was in McDonald's with the kids getting food, and I was outside. I was sat on the bench outside. And I had shorts on and a vest on, and like you say, as you can see, I'm covered in tattoos. I've got tattoos on my back, on my legs, and I'm like 6'5", 6'6" tall. And this guy come up to me, and he said to me, "Do you like Vikings?" Because I've got Viking tattoos everywhere. So I said, yeah. I said, I love Vikings. He said, would you ever be interested in being like an extra? And I thought, what's this guy going on about? Anyway, he told me that he was involved with the series, The Vikings.
Yeah.
And he told me his name, he gave me his phone number. And then his wife said, his wife was there. Her brother was actually working on Gladiator 2. And she mentioned Denzel Washington. And I'm a big film fanatic, and I thought, I've not heard of Gladiator 2. And Denzel Washington being in no, I don't believe it. Anyway, I took his number, but I never actually followed it through. Never. And I found out in the end that this guy was the prop master on the Viking series. And I was gutted. And then about 2 months later, Gladiator 2 with Denzel Washington started being televised, the trailer and stuff. And I was absolutely gutted because I sort of hang on to that now, and I think that could have been my claim to fame, maybe, but who knows, maybe another time. Because I've got a friend in work, an older guy. He's got to be nearly 60 now. And have you seen the series Reacher, Jack Reacher? Oh, yeah, I love it. I think what's his name? Richardson. Yeah, so the guy who plays Reacher, obviously, he's a big guy. And my friend said to me, you should try doing some acting. You should try and get into it. And I thought, well, I don't know. My head's too big for a start. So what we'll do now, mate, is we've been going for an hour.
Yep.
We'll talk films.
Yeah.
So I'll say, what are your 5 favourite films?
I actually love that question. My probably top favorite films has to be one of them, Avengers Endgame, definitely. I think that's a huge Marvel fan, and I also loved Batman Begins with Christopher Nolan because
Yep.
who can't love Batman, can't love DC, especially a character can relate to. And I think I also because a fan of his Oppenheimer. I loved Oppenheimer so much.
Brilliant film. Yeah.
That was even 3 hours long, brilliantly, fantastically done. And I think again, not many people obviously know about this film, but it's Natural Born Killers. Definitely, it has to stand, as my top film, crime fiction, serial killer stuff, everything in the film. I could have. I always recommend that to people to watch. And I think my 5th one is because being a Quentin Tarantino fan. Esther, I would also say Kill Bill. Definitely Kill Bill. The Volume 1, Volume 2, brilliantly done. For me, no mistakes.
Have you seen Reservoir Dogs?
Yeah, I think that was the first Quentin Tarantino film I actually saw, and I loved it so much. One of my top favorite in the series.
I watched something with Samuel L. Jackson the other day because obviously Samuel L. Jackson's been in quite a few Quentin Tarantino films, Pulp Fiction, things like this. And they were having a conversation on, I think it was Django Unchained. And I think Quentin Tarantino got a lot of flack about that film with saying that he was a racist and things like this.
Yeah.
And they interviewed Samuel L. Jackson and they said, how do you feel about your role in the film? How do you feel about, is Quentin Tarantino a racist? And he gave a fantastic answer, Samuel L. Jackson. He said, how can this man be a racist when every film that I've ever been in, he gives me the most powerful role? The character that I play is always the most powerful, who holds all the cards. And I thought that was a fantastic answer because when you look at the role that he plays in Django, on one hand, to the eye, he just looks like, a slave, butler, if you like. But then deep down, when you get into the nitty gritty, you realize that, he's deceiving, he's conniving. He holds, a lot of the cards. He controls Candyland. It's sort of his playground, if you like. And I really like the answer that Samuel L. Jackson gave. By saying, I've always got the most powerful character in the film. And I thought that was a brilliant answer.
Yeah, I actually think that's very interesting as well because Quentin Tarantino, again, if you look at all his films that he makes and stuff, he also, as well as crime fiction, and stuff. I guess I know he also believed he got some bit of backlash criticism for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, that film he did, especially with the the twist on the Sharon Tate case and also the Bruce Lee fight scene. But I think at the end, I love his response. He was saying at the end of the day, yes, he mixed facts versus fiction, but it's a fictional story, and so people need to realize that what he's writing about isn't necessarily true crime or true basis. So obviously he wants to give his films a happy ending, that was time upon Hollywood. And I think because I think what I respect about him is that he also has that that mindset and stuff. No matter what people say, even though he's got criticism all his life, it's like he's I think got that to the point that what, these are his films. He wants to make the films, the stories that he enjoys, and the stuff that he likes to get out, because there is the saying, always write the stories that you enjoy and the craft you believe in, because then the audience and your readers will also enjoy it, because rather than worrying about too much focusing on pleasing everyone, because you can't please every single person in society at the end of the day.
And I got given similar advice, mate. And like I say, I've only got me in the podcast, but I got some advice saying that if you put yourself out there for people to see, those people are going to judge. There's people going to pick at your faults. Nobody wants to really point out your positives, do they? They all want to point out your negatives, and it's how you deal with those. How you deal with those comments, how you deal with those people, those messages, and I think that's a perfect mindset to have, is, ignore them. If they don't give you any positive feedback, just ignore them and keep going and keep doing what you're doing and keep doing what you love. Endgame. Let's talk Endgame now.
Yeah, definitely.
So my favorite film out of the Marvel franchise is probably Infinity War.
Yeah, brilliant film.
Only simply because, again, Vikings, Thor, when he builds Stormbreaker and then he comes down in the Bifrost into Wakanda and he jumps in the sky and I just love that scene. I think it's brilliant. I think it's amazing.
Yeah, I think I quite like Infinity War Endgame as well, because what I loved about those type of films and stuff, especially when you look at Infinity War and stuff, is like the setup and all of the characters coming together as a team, because it's like I feel like it was completely different to the previous Avenger films, because it's like the ultimate 2-part finale against this ultimate being Thanos and stuff. It's like, and I think what I loved it actually builds a climactic the scene towards the end of the end of the film, when they all, I think, one by one disappear and stuff, and it makes you think, okay, if he had one being has the power to defeat the Avengers, how are they gonna the remaining people Avengers gonna defeat him in the next film? Are they who's gonna die? Who's gonna win? And then the funny part about this, you had to wait an entire year to wait for the climatic thing of it, because what they do with, I think, these 2-part films and stuff, they have the first part leave you with a cliffhanger and say, hey, you have to wait till and then a year later to find out what's gonna happen, just like they did in the classic TV shows, when they used to leave the Batman in the cliffhanger every episode. And I think I actually like that, because I enjoyed it even more, because then it's like in between that you could discuss it with other fans around you, say, wait, who's gonna survive? How are they gonna come back? What's gonna happen next? And you could come up with all these different theories.
Yeah, it's quite the irony of it as well, with because when Captain America says to Iron Man, you're not the man to lay down on the wire and let the other man crawl over you. And obviously, we know what happened in the final film. Quite emotional. Yeah. But I like the irony of the comment versus Tony Stark's actions.
Yeah, definitely.
What other films did you say?
I think the other film I said was Batman Begins, by Christopher Nolan.
Yeah, I think Bale he's a brilliant Batman as well, Christian Bale, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I would say that the Dark Knight trilogy definitely a true masterpiece by Christopher Nolan.
I've Heath Ledger, Joker. What you saying?
Yeah, I think he Ledger. I think he definitely portrayed the Joker in a different way, which is more
Yeah.
as a psychopath compared to comedian and a gangster type Joker. And the thing, what I liked about him, he would actually look the actor looked him up in rooms to get into role of what
Mm.
and they said the Joker actually, he was I think also suffering from depression, I believe, and said the Joker actually, frankly, the Joker took over his mindset that he was so obsessed, got into this role of the Joker that it defeated him eventually.
Well, you've probably heard of it, but they say there's a curse around the role, don't they? There's a curse around the role of the Joker because I think one of the previous Jokers committed suicide. I think Jack Nicklaus struggled mentally after he played the Joker.
Yeah,
Heath Ledger obviously passed away. I was listening to an interview with a guy called Michael J. White. He's a martial artist, and he's in the film with the Joker. He's sat round the table when the Joker walks in, and he makes the pencil disappear.
yeah,
So he's the boss. He's the when they bring the Joker in the bag and they chuck him on the table. So
yeah,
that's Michael J. White, the guy that he kills. Um, and he said, Heath Ledger would turn up some days in full costume, and he would be acting out the role of the Joker, but he wouldn't even be shooting that day. He'd just literally walk around all day portraying himself as the Joker, just for their satisfaction. Um, I don't know if you've ever seen it, but the interview with Heath Ledger's father, I think it was. And so when Heath Ledger locked himself away, I think it was a hotel room or something,
yeah,
and he actually wrote a diary
yeah,
of how he was trying to manipulate his own mind and get into this sort of psychopathic mindset. And his father said, if I ever published this diary and sold it, it would make millions or billions of dollars because it's that in detail, it's that graphic, it's that you know brilliant and fantastic, yet so sadistic and scary at the same time.
yeah. It's actually quite interesting because it's like he actually got into a mind of a psychopath killer,
Mm.
and into the thought, got into his shoes, what it's like to be a psychopathic murderer. And I think even like the other cast members were frightened by that. Some of them forgot their own lines. They had to improvise this. Because I think what I actually like about it, because you have the Dark Knight, which is like a different type of story compared to the other Batman villains and films. And so because the Joker, he's the ultimate villain of Batman. Because no matter
Yeah,
what I like about it is that and I think it's interesting that normally in the Dark Knight trilogy specifically, that all the villains that Batman fought was even Bane. It's like they all got defeated and at the end, and also probably killed as well. But the Joker, no matter what happens,
mm.
he just cannot break the Joker's. He can't come to kill him
No,
because even though the Joker broke his mind down, trying to manipulate him, by killing his girlfriend, killing everyone, taking everyone over. Batman will just not break his rule to kill this
yeah,
psychopathic killer. That's what I
yeah.
loved about his story.
And that's what the Joker says. You complete me. They're the alpha and omega. They're the yin and yang, aren't they? The Batman and Joker. They're the total opposites, yet they're exactly the same. They're both
Yeah,
freaks. They're both freaks, and that's what the Joker says. They're both freaks. And that's why I think it's the best sort of hero and villain concept ever. Batman and the Joker.
yeah, definitely. I think because it's like the ultimate duo. You can't have Batman without his
Yeah,
Joker because every Batman
exactly.
has a Joker.
I think if I was gonna give you my top five, I've been trying to think of it since I asked you that question, and I'd probably say Troy as my number one. Love that film with Brad Pitt where he plays Achilles. I've got the tattoo there where it says there are no pacts between lions and men. Where Achilles, when he fought Hector, just before he killed Hector. Gladiator is another one, probably one of my favourite films. Um, Warrior with Tom Hardy. I really like that film. I think that's a brilliant film. It's showing, how two men, obviously they're brothers, you know, it's sort of that underdog mentality, isn't it? The high school teacher, nobody thinks he's going to win, and inevitably he comes out and wins. I think that's it's like a modern day Rocky film. I was actually going to say Rocky, but Yeah, I think I sort of swayed myself with Warrior. Two more. Iron Man is probably one of them. The first one, the first Iron Man film. Where else can we go? I want to say Braveheart, but because I've already chose Troy and Gladiator, it's probably, there's a common theme going on there. Let's try and go for one more somewhere else. Maybe have you seen Once Upon a Time in America?
Yeah, I love that film.
Yeah, I'd probably say that. I really like that film. So they're my five.
Yeah, brilliant films.
Yeah. Last question, mate, before I go.
Yep.
If you could sit round a dinner table with four people from history, they can be alive, they don't have to be alive, they can be family, they could literally be any four people that you want from history, who would they be? I think I know the answer to one of them already.
Yeah, I would say one of them will be definitely has to be Quentin Tarantino, my idol, definitely without question. I would definitely any day. So Quentin Tarantino will be one, and I would say maybe the guy who created Twilight Zone, so Rod Sterling and stuff. He's a guy created because he's been my hero, my inspiration, who actually got me to storytelling. And this is, I have to put this up here. Stan Lee, the legend, of the
Oh,
of the comic
yeah.
book. Who doesn't want to be at a dinner table with Stan Lee, the legend and stuff. And I think the fourth person I would say is instinct, because even though I've so many people, I have to say probably again another one of my favorite directors would has to be Christopher Nolan. Definitely Nolan, it has to
Wow.
be there, because he's a brilliant visionary who creates wonderful stories.
Now that's some dinner tables. That is a really, really, yeah, that's one of my favourites so far. That's from every time I've asked that question. I think that's my favourite so far. That would be a fantastic dinner to just sit and listen to them speak. That would be fantastic. Well, it's been a pleasure, mate. I've really enjoyed speaking to you. We could definitely do it again in the future.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
I think I'm going to start in the near future getting two or three guests on at the same time and doing sort of a more topic-based conversation.
Yeah.
So and there will be a lot of sort of psychological conversations going on and things like that. And I think you would bring a lot of value to those conversations. And you know what, mate? We could probably do one just based on film, because I'm doing a podcast in a couple of weeks with a friend of mine where we're purely basing the episode on films and how we depict that film and sort of, how would you put it, correlate it with modern day society. So one of the films that we're going to be speaking about is Lord of the Rings.
Okay. Yeah.
Where how you could look at, like, you've got the orcs who are just, if we sort of translate that into reality, is the sort of the social, how can you put it, just the what's the word I'm looking for, just the grit. I'm trying to think of the word now. You've got me stumped. So it's like the people who will just follow whatever they're told.
Yeah.
So whatever the news says, we believe, and we're just like zombies, and we do what we're told every day. That's sort of the orcs. They're told by the grand wizard, the scheming wizard.
Yeah.
Then you've got the all-seeing eye, which is Sauron, which is sort of the patriarchy, if you like, the higher powers that be that are always keeping their eye on us. Then you've got Aragorn and his group of people who are trying to do right and bring justice to the world and things like this. And it's something that he's extremely good at talking. I'm not very good at talking about it, as you can tell. But he's really good at sort of watching a film and then relating that to, modern day society and reality and things like that. So maybe you could jump on that with us, mate. That'd be interesting.
Yeah, definitely. That's something. Yeah, I'll definitely be down for that. Yeah, let me know when it closer time when it's out.
Okay, mate. Cool. I will. Definitely.
Yeah, and it's
Well,
been a pleasure.
yeah, I've enjoyed it, mate. I really have, and we'll definitely speak again. You're a very interesting person, and sounds like you've got a fantastic brain and hopefully a fantastic future, mate.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. Right. I'm going to go, mate, but it was lovely speaking to you, mate.
Thank
See
you
you
very
soon.
much. Have a good evening.
And you, mate. Bye-bye.
Bye.